call the meeting to order. And I just wanted to remind everybody of the COVID protocol as you approach the podium during your presentation. We'll practice it just like we have in the last couple of meetings. The next item on the agenda is to establish a quorum. We do have a quorum this evening. Thank you for your attendance. Item 3 would be the citizens' communication. Sandy, do we have anybody that's asked to present to the board? Okay, thank you very much. The 4th item on the agenda is the Chancellor's Administrative Report. Dr. Walker.
Thank you. Board members, on March 23rd, 2020, the Board of Regents passed a resolution regarding the various matters associated with COVID-19 virus. The board in this resolution, in furtherance of public purposes and so stated in the resolution, made several delegations to the Chancellor in order to efficiently and effectively prepare the college district in response to the declarations of emergency announced by the United States, the state of Texas, and local entities, as well as in preparation for the potential declaration of additional emergencies by other local, state, and national or international entities. As a result of COVID-19, the board didn't meet in regular meeting times and therefore was not given opportunity to improve an engagement letter for the auditors. I therefore had the college move forward to utilize Shock and Smith for these services in order to meet the statutory deadlines for the submission of our audit to the state. That audit has been concluded and you will be receiving a report in December, but I feel it necessary in the spirit of the resolution to notify the board this evening of that action I took. I am open to any questions you may have. We've used Shock and Smith for several years before and been very successful with their audits and have had a great relationship working with them. But do you have any questions before I continue my report on that? I just wanted to notify the board of that action. Okay, thank you. At your desk this evening are the copies of the 2 primary policy considerations that are being presented to the 87th legislature by the Texas Association of Community Colleges this next session. Those two priorities are under the headings of funding and what is called TRUE. I just wanted to give you copies of those. You can read those at your leisure. TRUE is the Texas Reskilling and Upskilling Through Education, which is an additional financial recommendation asked to give each institution in the 50 community colleges an additional $1 million to focus on designing a talent pipeline to put Texans back to work post-COVID. But I give you those for your review just so that you have copies of those to read over. And if you have questions in the future, I'll be glad to answer those in a future meeting. It is important each year that we consider the impact we are having on high school graduation and the numbers of students that are choosing Nctc as their first choice for college. Also at your desk this evening is a report of the Isds in our service areas. Those shaded in which Nctc is shaded in blue reflect high schools that have the highest numbers of students from that ISD that chose Nctc. In Cook County, we rank #1 choice. In Kalispell, Era, Gainesville, Lindsay, Munster, and Valley View ISDs. In Denton County, we rank first choice among Argyle, Arbery, Denton High School, Fred Moore High School, Dyer High School, Ryan High School, Crum, Lake Dallas, Flower Mound, Louisville Learning Center, Louisville High School, Marcus High School, Pilot Point, Ponder, and Sangamon. In Montague County, we rank #1 for Bowie and Nakona, and of course we rank #1 for our Graham High School, where we have our branch maintenance tax. I think those are very complimentary numbers to consider that we are the #1 choice of high school graduates in those areas. That is a huge accolade to the work of our dual credit department as they recruit, and also our admissions staff as they work diligently. So I applaud those efforts and think that that is important data for each of you to consider. In a recent KERA article and radio broadcast, I'm proud to say that Nctc was recognized as having a robust, well-documented, and transparent COVID-19 dashboard. I would like to say congratulations to our police and emergency management staff and Robbie and his team. Good job for that. That was a very complimentary article for us. I would have to say it was not necessarily a complimentary article for higher ed, but it did recognize Nctc as having a robust and very powerful COVID transparent database for our students and faculty access. In the spring of 2020, NCTC graduate Rebecca Hammond had been selected as one of the 25 Phi Theta Kappa Honor Society members who will have their writing published in the 2020 issue of PTK's online literary journal. She was also selected as one of only 5 students who will receive scholarships for their exemplary entries through the Reynolds Scholarship. That showcases, this particular publication showcases the outstanding writing of Phi Theta Kappa members. Hammond says she wouldn't have been able to submit her paper written for an honors project by Nelson Lozano, one of our college algebra math faculty here at NCTC, if he and her lead advisor, Sarah Spikeston, hadn't pushed her to do so, both of those NCTC faculty. Hammond is currently attending University of North Texas, where she's majoring in speech language pathology on a transfer scholarship as one of UNT's multicultural scholarship scholars from graduating from us. Also, as another point, I would like to ensure the success of transfer students, I'd like to announce that University of North Texas has made 3 important changes to their Transfer Excellence Scholarship program. It is a merit-based program that recognizes transfer students who demonstrate a track record of academic success. They started by increasing the amount of each award level for those 2-year scholarships so that now it ranges from anywhere from $1,500 to $4,000 per year, with the award amount based on the student's transfer GPA. Next, in recognizing that a large number of students transfer to UNT from NCTC every spring, they ensured that they could offer the scholarship to eligible students in both long semesters. So they now can earn that as transfer students to UNT from NCTC both in the fall and springs of each year. So they will begin that in the spring of 21. Finally, in support of the Texas 60 by 30 completion goal, UNT is also committing an offering of $500 one-time bonus to each student who earns an Associate of Arts or Associate of Science degree with a minimum of 3.0 GPA prior to transferring to UNT. This bonus award will also be offered in the fall and spring and also in the beginning of 21. The great news is that $500 is in addition to the Transfer Excellence Scholarship. I think that's important to show our relationship with the University of North Texas and the amount of transfer work we do, and we're excited about that. On a faculty standpoint, in October, our faculty members, Pat Ledbetter, Jane England, Cami Boaz, Ann Colton, Jared Ince, and Amber Sundanov attended the 40th Texas Community College Teachers Association Leadership Conference. And that conference was held online for the first time, but nonetheless the program was very impactful in stimulating presentations and opportunities for attendees to interact with colleges and colleagues across the state. 2 of our NCTC attendees served as campus representatives and members of the TCCA State Committee. Pat Ledbetter is campus representative for Gainesville, Bowie, and Graham, and is also a member of the Legislative Committee, and Jane England is a campus representative for Corinth, Flower Mound, and Denton. I remind you that Jane has also served as the state president for TCCTA in previous years. She is also a member of the Professional Development Committee. Professor Ledbetter in England attended online committee meetings prior to the start of the event. The other 4 NCTC participants mentioned were recently selected for the TCCTA Faculty Fellows Program. That fellowship program provides specialized professional development opportunities for new faculty members who have been teaching at their respective institution for at least 5 years or less. So a lot of good things going on. Wanted to report to you this evening those pieces. Opening out of our students and our faculty and staff who are working diligently during trying times to keep themselves informed and ready for their classrooms and their workload. So that's all I have. Thank you.
Thank you very much for that report. The next item on our agenda, item number 5, is reports from the Regents. And the first report is from the Executive Legislative Committee. And we did meet on November the 11th at 5 p.m. In the Chancellor's conference room. Dr. Wallace provided some updates regarding the current enrollment status of fall, the second 8 weeks, and for the spring of 2021. He also provided an update from the 87th legislature, the TAP, CAT, and TCAT policy priorities. He also discussed the City of Corinth partnership and potential rezoning and effects that it might have on our Corinth campus. Residential housing was discussed and the athletes' return in the spring semester. And then finally, he updated us on COVID-19 cases for the overall, all the campuses here at Nctc. And we adjourned at 5:40. So the next one would be the Finance Committee. Christine?
Yes, Finance Committee met on November 11th. We discussed the interpretation of a local board policy related to monthly budget transfers, and Dr. Miller will address that a little later on in the meeting. We discussed our practices for soliciting bids on CDs from our local financial institutions. Dr. Miller discussed the financial impact of the decline in enrollment and how that may affect our spring term, and then we went over the October financial statements.
All right, thank you very much for that report. Item 6 on our agenda this evening is reports to the Regent. Dr. Miller is the financial report.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. As Dr. Wallace said earlier, the auditors have come and gone. They're currently finalizing our annual financial report, and Judy Smith plans to present those findings at the December board meeting on the 14th of next month. So we will be taking care of that at our next meeting. If you turn to the financials, I hope you've had a chance to look over them. I do have just a couple of items there that I would like to call your attention to. Let's see, first of all, if you look at the second page there, budget comparison, you'll notice that this month we do have revenues present that we did not have available last month. The previous year has now been closed, so we're able to get those revenue projections. And I just want to temper your enthusiasm. There is a very large difference between revenues received and expenses outgoing, but that is very common for this time of year. We get a lot of revenue in September because of fall tuition, and then our expenses have not had a chance to get rolling yet. So yes, it does show 23 million in revenue and 12 in expenses, but that's necessary to carry us successfully through the entire fiscal year. If you'll turn and look at the next page, this is what Ms. Morris was referencing earlier when she talked about our Finance Committee. I found in our board policy that there is actually a discrepancy in our board policy with our actual practices. And so I brought this forward to the Finance Committee, and it has to do with this report for budget adjustments. When I came 18 months ago, and I've been told for many years previous to that, the CFO has always prepared such a report. And my instructions were to make that report all budget adjustments of $50,000 or more that occurred. They're supposed to be included on this report. Well, I actually had occasion to be reading in local policy CC, annual operating budget. Our local policy says that the CFO will report all budget transfers of $25,000 or more. And that has not been our practice. So I asked the Finance Committee, which would you rather see, 25,000 or 50? I can either adjust my reporting or we can adjust the policy. And the consensus of the group was, let's stick with the $50,000 number that has always been reported. But in order to do that, we are going to have to adjust our board policy. So what I'm going to do right now, I'm going to pass out a copy of the adjusted policy that this will amount to a first reading, an opportunity for you to look at it, review it, and we will plan on bringing it back to the December meeting for a vote.
As Dr. Bowles doing that, I would note this. Oftentimes when we receive our updates from TASB, they have what is common among other institutions. And so as I kind of gave thought to this, I'm thinking that we had 50 in there at some point, and with updates over the last couple of years, that were local, that we probably just missed putting that back in the 50 before you adopted it, because that 50,000, that it also is prior to my coming, as far as how long we've been doing the 50,000. It would triple your numbers of adjustments that you would have to approve minimally too if we move it to 25. And so, but anyway, I just this kind of a history there. I think that's probably what we ran into too, is updates that we just didn't catch that.
Right, and Dr. Wallace, I also know about 10 years ago, they changed the state policy on purchasing. And it used to be purchases of 25,000 or more had to be taken to the board, but they raised that, and they might have raised that at the same time. We just never adjusted the policy. The only other thing that I would draw your attention to, every month I make it a point to go over with the Finance Committee the cash flow report. And I just want you to take a look at that. And our cash accounts do appear to be strong when we compare them to last year's numbers. So that's very promising news. Are there any questions that you may have about any of the financials?
No? Okay, thank you very much for the report. All right, the next item under reports to the Regents is item B, the National Community College Benchmark Best Practice Performance Report. I believe that's Mr. Brown.
Yes, thank you. How are you doing tonight? The good news is I'm here presenting the Best Performers Report, which means we're a best performer. And so very excited about that again this year. The National Community College Benchmark Project is probably the largest data project that we do here at the college each year. And a bunch of schools around the nation do it, and to be in the top 10% or the bottom 10%, because sometimes that's good, is nice to be recognized. And so tonight, I'd like to go through some of the ones that we've been recognized for. A couple of the ones that we've been recognized for a few years now is the 3-year and the 6-year transfer rate. These are the rates of how we get our students from our college off to university within 3 and 6 years. And in both of these situations, we're in the top 10% of the nation. That's exciting. What's really exciting though is the next two, because those are kind of lagging indicators that are, you get on the back end 6 years later. These leading indicators are our credit momentum rate, which is they get 6 credits in their first term with us. And it's not I took 6 classes or 6 hours, it's I passed them. And so that's exciting. That's that early momentum building toward the degree early. And then the other one is our gateway momentum rate. It's the first time it's been on here. And what that is you have 1 year to complete your college level math. That's huge because, as we all know, that's one of the leading gateway courses keeping people from degrees. So Nctc gets our students where they need to be quickly. The next one would be the percentage of employers satisfied with career program completers in preparation. It doesn't matter if we're training our workforce if the people hiring them aren't happy, and they are very happy with us. And so that's exciting for us. The community loves what we're doing with our students, and they're telling us in their feedback, this is what we want. And then the last part is probably the most important part, which is Nctc keeps the cost down for students. Here we have 3 different indicators where we've calculated different ways in which we are successful at that. The first one is tuition and fees as a percentage of median service household area income. When you look at our area income for the service area, and then when you take the amount that it costs to go to school at Nctc, it is ridiculously low. And we're being told by these people in the nation that we're one of the lowest, top 10%, but bottom 10%, because we want cost down. And then instructional cost per credit hour and instructional cost per FT student. So again, we're keeping the cost down for the consumer, the student, and that helps our communities. And so those are the main things I wanted to talk to you all about tonight. If you go to the last pages, it'll tell you which other schools were recognized, and it'll tell you like how many different schools from the state of Texas were recognized. One of the ones I thought was interesting was the Gateway Math. Nctc was the only one from Texas in that category. So this is good news, and I'll be back next year with more good news because we're on this every year. So I hope. Thank you very much. Any questions?
Questions?
Okay.
You collect all this data over the whole year, or?
Yeah, this is there's 20 forms with hundreds of data points that we give. Hundreds, yeah. Yes. That's what I do.
What areas do we most need to work on?
That's a good question. So graduation rate, because if many of our students transfer, then are they graduating, right? So that's one of the areas that we look at. There's a combined rate though, that's transfer and graduate, and we're good at that too. We're just not top 10% this year. We have been in the past. So that's not necessarily always.
And when you say graduate, you mean graduate with a degree from another institution, or you mean graduate from here?
Graduate from us.
Okay.
But when you there's also a combined rate,
Okay.
and we do good in that as well. So that's not necessarily, that's more, I mean, there's little, I'd love to sit down with you. We have hundreds of numbers that we could go through and we could find an area of interest for sure.
Very good. Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
All right. The next item on our agenda is the Chief Executive Office from Texas Education Code, Section 551, 225, no, 252, 255. That would be Dr. Walsh. You're going to talk to us about that.
Under the Texas Education Code, Section 51.253C, the institution's chief executive officer is required to submit a data report at least once during each fall or spring semester to the institution's governing body and post on the institution's internet website a report concerning the reports received by employees under TEC Section 51.252. The type of incident described in the employee's report constitutes sexual harassment, sexual assault, dating violence, or stalking as defined in TEC Section 51251 and any disciplinary actions taken under said section. For the purposes of compiling the Chief Executive Officer's reporting requirements under TEC Section 51253C, the attached summary that you have tonight is a report, also referred to as Appendix A in the state report, includes all of the required reporting information for the North Central Texas Community College District Governing Board for the 2019-2020 academic year as of November 4th, 2020. The summary data in Appendix A is categorized based on the reporting requirements under said Section 51253C. The reports received may be applicable in multiple reporting categories, and therefore the data summary in categories may not add up to the totals in other categories. The summary data is also reported on our website under Title 9 at the bottom of the main page as per the public reporting requirements under TEC Section 51253C. Any additional reports received by the Title IX coordinator that do not meet these required reporting criteria have been omitted from these compliance purposes and specific reporting. You have that appendix as an attachment to your documents this evening. They are also on our website. The number of reports received under Section 51252 are 6. The number of confidential reports under said section are 0. The number of investigation conducted under Section 51252 are 6. The disposition of any disciplinary processes for the reports under that section concluded with no findings of the policy violation are 4. Concluded with employee disciplinary sanction, 0. Concluded with student disciplinary sanction, 2, to result in the same total. Number of reports under Section 51252 for which the institution determined not to initiate a disciplinary process are 4. And then under Texas Code 51255, also represented number of reports received that include allegations of an employee's failure to report or submit a false report to the institution under said Section 51255A are 0. So therefore, there are no disciplinary actions on employee termination or intent to terminate in lieu of employee resignation. That is a report I have to submit. It is submitted to you, and we are open to any questions, including our Title IX Director, Kay Traeger, if you have any further detailed questions.
Okay, thank you very much for the report. The next item on our agenda, 6D, is the COVID-19 report. Robbie Ball, please.
Thank you, Madam Chairman.
What I given to each one is our report on our current COVID numbers. If you take a look in the first box, the top box, those are the current numbers. What we have going on as of 5 o'clock today, 16. As you can see, we've got 8 active cases on the employees, and we've got 14 active cases on the student side. 17 employees are currently quarantined, with 87 students that are currently quarantined. And to the far right gives you a total of 22 active cases, and it breaks it down on the campus where they're at. Say one thing that brings to your attention is there's several on that are online students, and we do report those as well, even though they have not been on the campus to expose anyone. So, the second box there is sort of an accumulation of running total. To date, and this is since August 24th, that's when the school started, was 92 cases is what we've had. The next number there of 68 is actually 70. It should be, I didn't update that today, sorry. That should be 70 that have recovered. The month of August we had 5, but we only started on the 24th. And the month of September we had 27, and it jumped up to 42 in October, which was a little more than 1 per day. And now we are in November the 16th, and we've got 17, so we're running about one per day for November. Further down, total positive cases, we've had 18 employee cases, 74 student cases. And then the last box is sort of a breakdown of where all of those cases were, the campuses that they were in. I will say that Thursday evening at 5 o'clock, we had a total of 4, actually we had a total of 21 active cases, and today we've got 22, but the reason that number is now doesn't show a high, it's a net number because we had some that came off of quarantine. We had some that came off of the being quarantined because of a positive case. But I will say we've had 8 cases since Thursday at 5 until today at 5. I think Dr. Wallace would like to follow up on some of this as well. Anyway, if you have any questions, let me know.
Is that number considered high or low? Any number is bad, but 12, is that?
Gosh, it's hard to say. I haven't really looked at any of the other colleges to see what their numbers are. I feel like that we're on the low side, to be honest with you. I think it could be worse if we had students in the dorm. But for the most part, I think it's pretty much what we expected, to be honest with you. Just how you manage it.
So we look to the board for input. This is not this is a open question Q&A kind of area with your permission, Madam Chairman. What we're looking for in the spring is what our next big decision is, and so what I have concern about is that in the last few days we have seen exponential growth in cases across our service area. Our other colleagues in the state are beginning to make the calls of not returning to work post-Thanksgiving break. We have universities that have already made those calls, but the difference in the university and the community college in this sense is universities are very much contingent on residential students, where community college is not. Most of our students are commuter, so if you're exposed or if that's an issue, it's an issue to begin with. They come, they go, they come, they go. But we are concerned about, bluntly, the numbers of cases, what that may look like post-Thanksgiving break as people get together with family. We had planned, and I will just go ahead and share this data. We had, Dr. King can give us the real details of this, but we had 400 plus sections of face-to-face courses right now. We gave an option for faculty to move some of those after Thanksgiving to online to finish the semester. 72 of those courses have done so. I would say that 200 of those sections may not have the luxury of moving online due to the fact that they're industrial technology programs, cosmetology, welding, nursing, rad tech. They're programs that simply have to finish face-to-face. But I will be making the call probably by tomorrow morning on whether we maintain our current plan for academic courses to come back after Thanksgiving. If the data doesn't shift, I'm very concerned about bringing all students back after Thanksgiving. So you may see me, and our faculty have been brilliantly supportive of everything we need to do. They are prepared to go online at a moment's notice, but I'm really leaning toward the notion of moving us for the remainder of the semester after Thanksgiving to online instruction for academic to finish. It's 1 week and then finals, just to give you kind of a sense. It's not long term. Our faculty have been brilliant about desiring to finish students the way they started. Part of the concern by faculty is, well, if this student took this face-to-face, it's probably because they're not a good online or don't prefer online learning. But yeah, we have to keep in mind as a college the safety overall of the faculty, staff, and students. We have right now a plan to return our athletes to our campuses in the spring with very restrictive rules on housing, with less in those housing because of the nature of our dorm. We normally would house about 130 students a semester. We're looking at no more than 84. But that is a concern about what does January appear as, what will that look like. I can't make that call for certain right now, but we met with coaches, staff, and we will be meeting with students via WebEx, student athletes, to say, do you realize what this is going to do to you? You're not going to be able to be as flexible probably as you're accustomed. You're going to have to be basically, pardon the pun, married to your roommate. You're going to be with them for shower time. You're going to be with them as you travel on a bus. You're going to be in that same room with them, and they're going to be your partner for that semester to keep us from spreading. We look to you all, honestly, this evening to see your thoughts as a board, as the governing board for the college. We are going to always err, in my opinion, on the safety side and health safety side of our students and our staff and faculty. But we may have to do some things that may not be as handy for our students. We're looking at opening and extending our hours in the spring to where we have fewer staff at a time in facilities, but yet meet the demand for someone who wants to come in. So we're looking at that. That decision also will be made this week prior to Thanksgiving to give notice to our staff and faculty. It really affects what I call front door folks more than anyone. It affects, honestly, most of what Ms. Carroll manages, which is admissions. It also affects the business office where we take payment. Those are the things that our front door experiences. So we're working on that. We met for 2 hours today looking at schedules and things to try to determine what would be good for the spring. But we are in no man's land as far as real data, because data changes every day. But we're open to comments from the board, questions you may have about our COVID protocols, et cetera. If you have any or any input you may have, we would be very open to receive those at this time.
I have a question. So other community colleges that our athletes are competing or would be having competition with, can you give us an update?
I can. So in our conference, we are the only institution that did not return athletes in our conference. We are not the only institution in the state not to return students. There are 4 or 5 colleges in the state that aren't in our region or conference that actually have canceled their athletic programs for the full academic year. And then there are those that are very likened to Nctc with the Gainesville campus, where they have far more dorms likened to us than we do, who have opened their doors and have been have felt very confident in how it's approached, but they've had cases. I mean, they just will, and they've quarantined whole teams as a result. But they, 1 or 2 colleagues I've spoken to that have more athletes than we do, I've said, how's it work? And they said, they pretty well. But my concern is, and I don't want to be, I'm pretty positive on most things, but my concern is the initial stop, we had less cases when we initially stopped than what we're seeing today. We're seeing an increased COVID number count in the service area, and if that doesn't bind back between now and January, we could be at our highest numbers where we before we were at our lowest numbers when it started. It's almost like you wish you could have done the inverse. Where our counts come up now, we were closed by the state originally when our numbers were at the lowest. So there's it's a smorgasbord. Some colleges said we're not going to chance it at all. Some have said we're going to bring them back no matter what. Some of our colleges have 700 dorm rooms, and they have brought them back. Our university partners have brought students back.
Has the athletic governing body made any recommendations or eligibility determinations for the spring yet?
And I wish this wasn't a live broadcast. The National Junior College Athletic Association has only done a couple of things as a national, because they do represent all the states. And what they've done thus far is said athletes that do not play this season will not lose a year of eligibility. So that is important, that if any point in time you happen to not be able to compete, you still have a year of eligibility. They have also given detailed recommendations on how and the protocols associated with playing. And they postponed all athletics but one to the spring. So all athletics in the junior colleges in the United States will be playing in the spring, all athletic programs except for cross country. So football will begin in March and April. Basketball, volleyball, we will all be competing every sport in the spring. They have given detailed protocols of how we have to clean balls between passes and plays, how we have to limit audience, how we have to limit numbers in workout facilities. They've given guidelines for that, all in conjunction with even those that I chaired a committee in the state among presidents, and we had already kind of determined those things as our own. But they have not, as of yet, said we want to stop athletics. Now, some regions in the United States have already done that. The larger universities and the big, groups have already said we're not going to play this year, it's just too complicated. Some of our colleges right now are scrimmaging as we sit today, this semester. But the protocols we'll have to set in place will not make it easy to be an athlete in the spring. It just won't. We're going to have buses where you have plexiglass and you have masks on when you're traveling. You have to disinfect the bus between each ride. You have to disinfect, for example, if you're playing baseball and you've thrown that ball 4 or 5 times, it's been touched by 2 or 3 players, we have to throw that ball into a disinfectant vat and then get a different ball. I mean, you have to change that. So the expenses are higher. But at the end of the day, we are very fearful about putting our students, who are students first, at risk of not being able to complete their academic progression. We're here first and foremost to teach those students. And these athletes, if you're a sophomore and haven't been able to come back, it's hard. That's hard. So, we will make sure that we have meetings. We will notify these students, but I cannot sit here today and say, our plan today is bring them back, but I can't say that the plan in 2 weeks will be the same plan. It's just too much, and I notified them of that today.
And how many student athletes do we serve?
We would only be bringing back those that are truly scholarship or no walk-ons will come, so that's 84 students will be housed on campus. We will be extending our cafeteria. Mr. Ball can give you details of that, but basically Saturdays, Sundays we'll have options for them. We're encouraging them not to go home, but to stay pretty much on campus, because part of the issue is when they vacate or they go to another community, they come back, and we will be primarily teaching athletes online 100%, because the issue is if you're exposed in a face-to-face course and you're an athlete who's in a dorm, it may not be the athlete that has COVID, but if they give it, then we have to quarantine those that have come in contact with that student. So you multiply your quarantine by 5 or 6, where it would have normally maybe been 2 or 3. So.
I'd like to make one more comment. we're seeing the most cases. I'm not gonna say that they have the most cases, but, you know, of course, we can't put those classes online. But that's one of the areas that we seem to have more cases, especially the exposure cases, not necessarily the positive cases. We also seem to have quite a few in the health science area, and that's because some of our students are in clinicals and they're around COVID cases a lot. So just kind of give you a little more information on why we have the numbers that we have. We have a lot of students that are going right now.
What, just thinking out loud, what if, like, after Thanksgiving break, and the numbers climb, it's what a lot of people are predicting, do we have anything in place to maybe counteract that towards the college is concerned?
Well, I think Dr. Wallace alluded to that we're going to try to make that decision this week before we leave next week on the break. You know, we have that option to put everything online after Thanksgiving, but now we will still have some employees that'll be on campus working. We'll be able to minimize that possibility. Okay.
And Mr. Henderson, we can go from everything from everybody, I mean, we've got a contingency plan basically that we could say, okay, the cases are so bad that we could literally close the physical doors, keep doing business virtually. IT has done an excellent job that everyone has the ability to do their work from home if we had to shut down for 3 or 4 days. So we can go everywhere from everybody back to no one physically here and still maintain operation. And so we'd rather not go to that extreme because there's always a student somewhere that just doesn't have, I mean, I shared data the other day with our staff. In the state of Texas, 47% of students right now did not have access during COVID to high-speed internet. That also means that 47% of students in this state need to be able to come in and visit physically with somebody about their admissions process or their financial aid. So we're going to always try to do our best to serve that student that just doesn't have a choice. But if you know, we still don't know if the state will make calls. If the state will decide, hey, you've got to do something different. If that happens, we have contingency plans for all those. We appreciate your input, your questions, because this is important to us. I want to again reemphasize that our primary objection, our primary objective is to keep our staff, faculty, and students healthy. And we are going to err on the side of keeping them healthy before we err on the side of any kind of risk. So we just wanted to reassure the board that these numbers, and Mr. Henderson, I would say these numbers are considerably less than our colleagues. We are doing a good job of tracking, and our students and faculty are doing a good job of self-identifying and living up to the rules, the instructors. I mean, our faculty have said more than once they're not having to argue with students to keep masks on. We have, I mean, I applaud our students and our faculty who are at the front line of this, and our staff that see the students every day. Everybody's really living by the rules, and that's why I think you see not ridiculous numbers, because our people are really doing a good job.
You said in the applied sciences that seems to be where most people are getting the requirement to have to be quarantined. What is it in that requirement? In other words, are there things we can do to mitigate?
They're getting exposed off campus somewhere. We get reports that my sister lived at home, and my sister is positive. Well, they live with her sister, so those type of exposures, it's not necessarily exposures that we're having in class.
So it's not on campus. Okay.
Right. Now, we do give the instructors an option. If somebody in the class tests positive, especially with those classes over, because we can't just shut them down to use. They have that option to be able to, you know, how comfortable are you to continue going? If they're all wearing their mask and they're staying, you know, 6 feet apart and they're following all the protocols, the chances are not very high that you're going to have everyone get a case. But it's kind of up to the instructor. I give them that option. So how do you feel about continuing the class even though somebody in your class is testing positive? And most of the time they want to go ahead and continue because, you know, these students signed up for a face-to-face
levels of exposure at the high schools, which is also then we get the email saying, oh boy, we have one in a class, now they're exposed, they're getting quarantined because of that as well, because they're still face-to-face, most of them. Now, we are seeing some of our Isds that are making announcements this week, they're going online to finish semester, or they're doing some transition. We've had that ebb and flow as well. But that's part of those numbers too.
We did have senior that closed
That's correct.
their high school, but they sent their dual credit to students, making that can continue to come. Okay, thanks.
Thank you very much for the report. All right, the next item, number 7 on our agenda, is the consent agenda items. Do either A or B need to be pulled and considered independently? No? Okay, then I would accept a motion for the approval of the consent agenda items as presented.
I move we present the consent agenda as presented.
We have a motion by Mr. Hand. Do we have a second? Second by Mr. Henderson. Okay, any additional discussion? All those in favor, please raise your right hand. Opposed? Motion carried. Thank you. And the next item on our agenda, under number 8, discussion and possible action, is the consideration for approving of the updating the local policy GK local. Dr. Miller.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. Most of you are probably aware that the Southern Association of Colleges and Schools Commission on Colleges is our regional accrediting body. Once every 10 years, we go through an extensive process to renew our accreditation. There are many facets to this renewal process, and right now we here at the college are focused on our compliance report, which will be due to SACS by March 1st of next year. This time around, there is a new compliance requirement regarding something that accreditors refer to as substantive change. A substantive change occurs anytime the college embarks on a significant change in activity. For example, opening a new location, offering a new program and or degree, a significant change to instruction. While the college has always had a process in place to handle these substantive changes, recent SACS requirements expect to see that these processes are formalized in board policy. Therefore, instead of the 2 sentences that we previously had in policy GK local, relations with educational accreditation agencies, this policy has now been expanded to better explain the detailed process that we have here at the college to go through and document our substantive changes. So that's the purpose of the policy, that change that you see in front of you. And I want to make sure that you understand it. It's not that we haven't been following this. We've been reporting substantive changes for over 10 years here at the college. It's just a change in SACS criteria that now they don't want to just see that they want to see that you actually have a policy in place that outlines how you're going to conduct those changes. So this is an effort to put into policy the actual processes we have been doing anyway over the past many years. Are there any questions about this policy? It's very exciting reading.
Do we need to vote on this today?
Yes. This is under discussion and possible action, so we would accept a motion if someone chooses to make that for the approval of this change.
I will make said motion.
Thank you, Dylan. Second, Erica. Thank you. Additional discussion. All those in favor signify by raising your hand, right hand. Opposed? Motion carried. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, the next item on our agenda is executive session, and we will need to have an executive session this evening. So before going into executive session, I need to announce that the board will now recess a regular meeting and go directly into executive session as provided for in the following Texas Government Codes. Section 551.072, deliberations about real property. So I guess we're staying.
Yes,
Okay,
ma'am.
we're
And
gonna
Madam
stay.
Chairman, if you would
Yes.
permit vice chancellors to stay in